Thank you for tuning in to Reader Radio. Tonight we join Janice Landry for Authors Chat.
Welcome. We are now on Reader Radio's Internet Network. This is Block Talk Radio, and we've got Authors Chat here. And I am glad to welcome as my guest Ms. Devorah Fox. She is the author of a very good book. In fact, I enjoyed it immensely, The Lost Prince. And Ms. Fox, are you there?
Yes, thanks for inviting me on the program.
Wonderful. It's good to have you. Now, I did want to let our readers know, not only are you the author of The Lost Prince, but you're also involved with... are you on a speakerphone, Ms. Fox? Because apparently we're having a little bit of a problem with an echo.
No, I'm not on speakerphone. No.
Okay. All right. Okay. Let me just see if we can fix everything and make sure that we're going correctly. But I did want to let our readers know that not only are you the author of The Lost Prince, but there's other things that you're involved in as well that they might not be aware of. And I just wanted to ask you if you could explain a few of them.
I am president of Mike Burns and Associates Incorporated. It's a small publishing company. We publish books and other training materials for people in the commercial motor vehicle operation industry. And I also write a biweekly column called Discoveries for a community newspaper called The Island Moon, which covers the Texas coastal bend.
Mm-hmm. And how did you get involved in some of this?
Oh, let's see. That's in the trucking industry. That is a classic case of serendipity. I was between opportunities back in the mid-'80s and went to work for Manpower. And Manpower sent me to a vocational school that taught truck driving and heavy equipment operation. And I just had a clerical position there, but they hired a new director of education, and his first job was to completely redo the student manuals for both courses, both truck driving and heavy equipment operation. There wasn't anybody in the entire company who knew anything about publications.
Oh, nothing at all?
Well, not about how to put a publication together, not about writing or editing or layout, and I did. And when he became aware that I did, I got drafted from a different department and worked along with him to redo both the truck driver training manuals and the heavy equipment operator manuals. And when that project was all done, he left the company. And I left along with him because by then I had decided he was about the best person in the company, and if he wasn't going to be there, there wasn't any reason to stay there. So we went and formed our own company to do a similar project for two more very large vocational schools in the U.S., and shortly after that, the federal government made a change in the guaranteed student loan funding, where you now could no longer get a guaranteed student loan to go to truck driver training school, and that really changed the industry greatly.
Oh, yeah, it made it harder to get this, I would assume.
It made it very hard. It just turned the industry upside down. And the schools that survived had to do a lot more classroom training than they had, and so Mike Burns, whom we named the company for, said, "Oh, they're going to need a textbook, and there aren't any textbooks out there, so let's write one." So we did, and that was 25 years ago.
And I do want to let our readers know that it is still out today. It's in its 5th edition, and this is considered, based on truck drivers that I've spoken with in doing my research, this is considered the Bible. Okay? This is the book that everyone that even wants to think of getting behind the wheel should have.
Well, we call it the Complete Guide to Tractor-Trailer Operations, and we believe it truly is. It has a number of units on the mechanical systems in the vehicle, on driving skills, on federal regulations, on how to apply for a job, on how to do the job once you've gotten it. It's a 500-page book. We think we've covered everything that needs to be covered. So.
Absolutely. It's very detailed. There's even actual drawings of what you're supposed to do when, and it's the basic outline of anyone that's considering being a driver. And nowadays, as I was mentioning to Ms. Fox before we came online, if you look in the Help Want ads, one of the first things you see is requests for drivers. There is a great need in that industry for people to drive. It's not easy to get the CLD and to understand and learn everything. That's where this book is key.
Well, in the decades that I've been in the industry, there always has been a shortage of drivers. The driver shortage got eased a little bit there a few years ago, but it is now back strong. Companies do need drivers. It is not the easiest job in the world to get or to do, but it is a very satisfying job if you know what you're getting into and prepare and understand the demands of the job. And back in the early 90s, the federal government introduced something new called the commercial driver license. You did not previously, you just went and got a vehicle operating license the same way you would get one to drive a car. But the federal government changed the process for getting a license that allows you to drive a heavy vehicle, such as a tractor-trailer. And this involves a number of tests, road and range tests, where you are driving in traffic, showing that you can take a corner, that you know how to merge into traffic, that you know how to use an on-ramp and an off-ramp, range exercises where you show that you know how to back it, couple and uncouple the tractor and the trailer. And then there is a written test that asks a lot of information, and that's pretty much where our materials come in. They help people prepare to take the written test, which is actually the first test that you have to take. If you don't pass the written test, then you don't get to take the road and the range test. So you have to pass the written test first. So we recently brought out some new publications where we have done commercial driver license test preparation study aids that you can access on an iPhone or an iPad. We wrote 7 apps for commercial driver license test preparation. Same thing, lots of information, the knowledge areas that you have to cover, and then lots and lots and lots of practice tests. So somebody who wants to go to take the test can develop a level of confidence before they go down to DMV and have a better chance of succeeding the first time.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I think it's a wonderful manual and a very useful guide for anyone that's even considering or that is currently in the industry, because there's always something that you might have missed in your knowledge or that you might have forgotten to have a resource to come back to.
Well, we hear that a lot from veteran drivers, that they keep a copy in the truck with them and do return to it to refresh their memory. When I'm having a bad day, I like to go read the reviews that we get for Bumper to Bumper. People are very enthusiastic about it. One of the most rewarding things about having been in this business for this many years is we do get little handwritten notes from people saying how much they liked the book. And I have to think about all the textbooks that I ever read as a student and how many times I ever wrote to the author or publisher of that textbook to tell them how much I liked the textbook, and I can tell you I did that exactly no times. So to get a letter like that from somebody saying, wow, I really liked this textbook, is that is just an amazing feeling. That's very rewarding, and that lets us know that we were successful in what we set out to do, which was to write a book that not only was comprehensive and knowledgeable, but was also enjoyable to use.
Absolutely. I can see where this would be of great use to someone just learning or, that is currently doing it. A lot of the diagrams you have are very clear cut, and it's very easy to see where and how you must do things in order to continue and be able to move forward.
Well, we had some wonderful artists who worked with us. We were very fortunate. They were not only talented artists, but they were interested in vehicles. They were car guys, and so it was especially fun for them to do these technical drawings that not only did they get to use their artistic skills, but it was an area that they were personally interested in working in. So we were very fortunate to get to work with some wonderful artists.
Mm-hmm. Well, it definitely shows. It definitely shows. I also was reading just a few of the posts that you have on the Eagle Ford Shale blog. I noticed that concerns topics concerning bumpers to bumpers, like how to train to drive, one of the vehicles, which is not easy to do. I did enjoy that particular article, and even more that was listed down here as well. I did want to ask you, have you yourself ever driven one of the big rigs?
No.
Really?
I haven't. Mike did. The way our partnership worked with it, he knew what we should teach in the book, mm-hmm. what subjects should be covered, how they should be covered, what the learning objectives were. And what I brought to the partnership was writing, editing, and layout skills. So he basically said, this is what we need to teach, this is what we need to cover, and I would say, okay, this is how we're going to present it. And it was, we had very complementary skills.
Now, one of the things I did in my research is I did contact a few of the actual training schools that are out there, and I just simply asked, are they familiar with your book? And they said, oh, yes, this is used in our actual curriculum. So this is not just something they just have them just read. It's physically part of what they teach. And I was very impressed by that.
Well, we're fortunate to have many of the customers that we had from the very first edition. They are still in business, they are still teaching, and they are still using our book in their program, and we find that very rewarding. It's
oh, absolutely.
Very rewarding
to be
but
high
part
praise.
Of their program.
Truly. Now, you were mentioning also that you also write for a local newspaper.
Yes.
Can you tell us something about that, Ms. Deborah?
The column that I do is called Discoveries. My nickname is D. Out here I live on an island on a very casual, informal city, and so Devorah is kind of a formal name, so most people just call me D. And the column that I do for the Island Moon is called Discoveries, and I go around Port Aransas and the larger area and discover the businesses that make the community what it is. We have a lot of small businesses that are owned by one individual or a husband and wife. They're very
small town, correct?
Yeah, and the businesses are personal expressions of the owners. They take their business very seriously, and they're an important part of the community. And I got curious about who was behind the business. How did they end up in a small town like this? what had they done before they, started this restaurant or this boutique or whatever the case may be. And so I would go in and I would start interviewing people, and that's pretty much what my column is. For the most part, they are profiles of the businesses here. Every now and then I will also cover a community festival or something that's going on with one of the volunteer or community organizations. For example, the group that raises money for the food pantry or the group that raises money for the animal shelter, they cover their activities and promote their fundraisers. So it's basically just a profile of the people and businesses and the activities that make Port Aransas what it is. It's a lot of fun. I have been doing this now for probably about 3 years. It's biweekly. I do a column every 2 weeks. And one of the things that has struck me is most of the people that have a business here never did that before. There are people who own restaurants. Yeah, there's people who own restaurants who never had a restaurant before. People who own boutiques who never had a boutique before. It was, I was an accountant in my previous life or whatever. But they move here to this town, and a lot of them come here because they were attracted by the city and by the environment, and kind of wanted to do something different. And I guess there's something about Port Aransas that inspires and empowers people to think, well, it doesn't matter that I never ran a restaurant before. I'm sure I can do it.
And, that's highly unusual to have so many people like that in one place. Like I said, I myself am amongst them. I previously had not done any interviewing like this. I basically had done sales or else customer service, but not an actual interview. So this is me, and I'm just taking it one step at a time so I can understand a person starting a new business and having never done before.
But they do a wonderful job. They, the restaurants here, it's the hospitality industry, but they really are hospitable. You go in there, and they do get to know their customers and their preferences, and it really is like they really are hosts, and they want you to enjoy yourself and be satisfied when you leave, and they take that all very seriously. It's very impressive. And we have some wonderful restaurants for a small city. Port Aransas has a permanent population of about 3,400 people. Mm-hmm. But we have something like 60 restaurants. I guess maybe we eat out a lot here, and they're all absolutely wonderful. And people from the larger cities around Port Aransas come here to go out to dinner.
It sounds like an enchanting place, truly. I did want to ask you a few other questions, like, for instance, with Bumpers to Bumpers. Is there going to be a second edition? Is there going to be another book concerning that?
Well, we always keep it updated. It's in its 5th edition now. And when there is a significant change, either in the equipment or in the industry or with the regulations, we do a new edition. And there are a number of regulations that are due to change, are being considered. It's a long process to change a federal regulation. A lot of people have to be consulted. The public has to have a chance to make sufficient comment. The pros and cons have to be weighed. So it's a very lengthy procedure from the time that the federal government proposes to change a regulation to the time that they actually change it. But there are a couple that are out there kind of hanging fire, and if a decision is made to make a change, then we will update the book so that it will be current.
Okay. Now, do you use, in Bumpers to Bumpers, do you use people within the industry currently to get a lot of your information to release?
We did. When we first put it together, yes, we used a number of people who wrote different chapters for us. And we continue to consult with people in the industry every time we go to do a new edition. We have a number of content specialists that we consult with who tell us that, yes, we're on the right track. This is the correct information. So we do use people who are in the industry.
Now, I did want to ask you one other question concerning bumpers. You mentioned to me that you had apps. Can you explain that?
These are programs that you can run on an iPhone or an iPad. We're very proud of them. What we do is we offer review material. This is the material that somebody needs to become familiar with before they go to take the commercial driver license test. And then there are lots of practice test questions, and the way the app works is if you get it wrong, it tells you that you got the wrong answer, and then it tells you what the right answer is, and it tells you why that is the right answer. And you can keep going over it and keep taking the tests until you get 90% or 95 or 100%, whatever it is you feel you need to do to feel confident to go actually take the test. But one of the features that people really like is it has an audio component to it. So you have somebody talking to you, essentially delivering a lecture, and I don't want to use the word lecture because that sounds very formal and stilted, but essentially it's a lecture. And what we hear from people who have used it is that the audio portion really keeps you engaged. You're not just reading, you're not just looking at words, but there's somebody who is talking to you. It's almost like being in a classroom listening to the teacher, except you can't see the teacher. You can hear the teacher, but you can't see the teacher. And a lot of people like that audio component. That they say that it really makes it more entertaining. I guess
Absolutely.
would be a good word. So we're very proud of that. We worked with a company called Study by App, and they do a number of other test prep apps for all kinds of professional licensing exams. And the audio feature is something that is their trademark, something that they're very proud of, and we're really glad that we partnered with them because we think that having the audio component really enhances the whole learning experience and makes it more enjoyable. And it was fun putting them together. Study by App made it. I don't know that I want to say easy. It wasn't easy, but made it possible. Definitely made it possible. I strongly doubt we would have done it without them. It would have been pretty much impossible without them. So they definitely made it possible for us to do it, and we're really proud to have those to offer in addition to the books, because you know these days everybody's got a smartphone, everybody's got a tablet, and are finding new ways to use them, not just for entertainment but for learning and for business. So
absolutely,
we're really excited about having been involved in putting together a product that uses that medium for education.
Now, Ms. Devorah, I'm receiving some information from our flash chat, and I happen to have a very famous person on that line, Ms. Samantha LaFancy. She is our first author that did Authors Chat, and she has a question. She just wanted to know, Ms. Devorah, did you start with nonfiction, or did you do a little of both before you published The Lost King? I mean, has The Lost King, but you mentioned you've been working on it.
I definitely started with nonfiction. We started Bumper to Bumper. The first edition came out in 1988. And I started writing fiction in the mid-'90s. My late husband encouraged me to do that. I think people have been expecting me to do that my whole life, but I didn't feel as though I had anything to say. And in the mid-'90s, I read a book that just really impressed me. I really enjoyed it. It really brought a lot to my life, and I found myself thinking, I want to do that.
I just wanted to ask you, what was that book?
It was The Ritual Bath by Faye Kellerman. It was her first book.
Oh, okay. I have not read it, unfortunately. Can you tell me what it's about?
It's a detective story. A young woman gets involved in there's some crime that she feels that she needs to get involved in solving it, and then she partners up with a city detective to solve it. I'm not sure I even remember what it was that struck me about that book, but I decided, all right, I want to write one. Simultaneously, I was not liking the fiction books that I was reading, so I decided, well, I can't find anything I want to write. I'll just write my own. So I wrote one. I wrote a novel, and my husband then said, well, let's publish it. And I said, oh, no, we don't want to do that. If you think that marketing and selling a nonfiction book, a textbook, is hard, and it is, that's a full-time job, I said, to try to market and sell fiction, that's just going to be, the learning curve is going to be absolutely vertical. I mean, it's going to be a whole other job, and I don't want to go there. I don't want to do that. So I put it aside. I actually wrote a number of others. Wrote that one, and then I wrote 2 or 3 in that series, and then I started another series. Actually, I have a whole bunch of what we call drawer stuffers, novels that never see the light of day, because I knew what I was getting into in terms of the whole commercial side of things, what was going to be required to market it, and I just didn't want to go there.
Well, you tell us that you were writing, but well, I guess let me rephrase the question. And how did you start getting published? Because what was the clincher that says, hey, I have something, I want to get it done?
What the textbook or the novel?
The novel.
That was also serendipity. Some of the biggest things in my life, you would think you would plan these or be thinking of this since you were 8 years old or something, but some of the biggest things in my life just sort of seemed to happen. What happened with The Lost King was in 2007, I had a friend who got fired and got divorced on the same day. And you can imagine what kind of a blow that was. I mean, that had his entire life just pulled right out from under him. And I thought, let me see if I can't write a happy ending for this guy. And I started writing The Lost King with the intent of writing a happy ending for my friend. And I wrote, maybe a chapter or so, and then I put it aside because just the business of running the publishing company is it's more than a full-time job, so I really don't have a lot of spare time for writing. Then in 2010, fellow member from one of my writer groups, and I belong to 3 different writer groups, but one of them sent me an email about National Novel Writing Month. I had never heard of National Novel Writing Month before. National Novel Writing Month is an organized writing marathon where in the month of November you try to write 50,000 words. And that is not, 50,000 words isn't exactly a finished novel. It's certainly not a commercial length novel, but if you manage to write 50,000 words, you're probably going to write some more and finish it and come up with something that has, it's finished at any rate. Even maybe it has commercial potential, maybe it doesn't, but you're certainly going to finish it if you've invested 50,000 words. Anyhow, I thought, okay, this sounds like fun in a sort of, boy, am I going to be glad when this is over kind of a way. And I thought, all right, I'll give this a try. I'll give National Novel Writing Month a try. And I resuscitated the Lost King. I decided, all right, I'll write some more on this. And I went ahead and I wrote 50,062 words, actually, in the month of November. I actually finished 2 days early. And had not written the ending. And there were also whole parts in the middle that I hadn't written because I didn't quite know what happened. I kind of knew what happened here and I knew what happened there, but I didn't quite finish it.
That's actually very common when writing, because sometimes, because it goes on how it flows. You may get the ending right off the bat and then work from the beginning to the middle, or vice versa. And I do understand what you're saying, how you had lots of books potential there and you put it aside because life does go on. I mean, you may not have all the time that you'd like to have as a writer.
Well, one of the prizes, I guess you could call it a prize, one of the prizes that you got if you finished National Novel Writing Month, that you don't actually get prizes. I mean, all you really get is bragging rights. You don't actually win anything. You just have bragging. You have to buy your own winner T-shirt even. I mean, But they did have an offer from CreateSpace, which is a print-on-demand publisher, and the offer was you could have a free proof copy of your book. So I thought, okay, that's pretty cool. What a lot of people that worked on National Novel Writing Month along with me used their coupon for was basically to just get the book between covers so that they would have a kind of a souvenir of what they had done. Some of them also used it as a manuscript to edit because it was cheaper to cash in that coupon than to print out 300 or 400 or 500 pages of your manuscript. Use a whole bunch of paper and a whole bunch of printer cartridges. But what I did was I sort of dangled that coupon in front of my nose and said, okay, this coupon expires in June, so it was June 30th of 2011. I'm going to finish the book by the end of June and cash in the coupon and get the whole book, have the whole book done and get it between covers and it won't have cost me anything because we have this free coupon. And that's what I did. I took some more time throughout the first 6 months of 2011 to finish the book. And in the course of doing that, I still liked it. I still really liked the book, even though I had been editing it now 2 or 3 times.
You sound surprised that you actually liked it.
Well, I was surprised because I kind of expected that when I would read through it in the cold, clear light of day that I would find it flawed or that it didn't hang together or that it didn't have quite the magic it seemed to have when I was writing it at like this pell-mell pace during the writing marathon. But I still liked it. I was still really engaged by the characters. And so it was almost a whim. I decided, okay, fine. I'm going to go ahead and publish it. I'm just going to put it out there so other people can read it. You would think that something like this you would plan and you would have a whole business plan and this whole strategy, but I didn't. I just winged the whole thing. So in the middle of December that year, that was 2011, there it was, published. So
wonderful.
And since then, I have been astounded by the number of people who really like it, got what I was trying to do with the story, understood where I was going with this poor fellow's plight. A lot of people said, "Wow, I've been there. I've been through that. I really could relate to King Bewilliam's problem." And I really was inspired by how he tackled it. And I even had one gentleman was so taken by the whole book that he had done some writing some years ago, but hadn't been writing in a long time. He started writing again. He said, this just got me all inspired to start writing again. And he was so excited by the book and the characters. He said, there's more story to tell. There's a sequel to this, and I can't wait for you to write it, so I'm going to write it. So he wrote his own sequel to the book. I'm just so amazed.
Fan fiction, absolutely.
Yes, fan fiction. I have fan fiction for The Lost King. I am astounded, and he was right. There is more to the story. There is more to be told. There's a lot more to be told, not just the sequel that I'm working on now, but another book after that and at least another book after that. I can now see 3 more books.
Oh, wow. That's impressive.
With these characters.
One thing I wanted to do, because when I was reading the book, the simple story that's told that he wakes up in a cow field, has no idea, his hair has grown longer, everything has changed on him, and he doesn't know why, but he still knows who he is. It sounds so simple, but there's actually so much more intense to it, and so many different, phases of a person's personality and conscience that goes into this. That's probably the best way to put it, but I liked the fact that even though he had no money, he was still able to go on and take care of himself and be able to feed himself and so forth just by his ingenuity.
Well, that's what I've seen so many people in this economic downturn who have worked hard their entire lives, worked for decades in an industry, have gotten good at what they do, and then practically overnight, through no fault of their own, are out of a job, are out of a career. The whole industry has vanished. Where can they go? And they have a family to support. And it is just a staggering blow and very hard to how do you pick yourself up after something like that? Where do you go? You're basically required to reinvent yourself. And one of the things that I appreciated about the friend who inspired the story and who inspired the character of King Bewilliam was the resourcefulness, the inventfulness, the ability to pick himself up and try.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what immediately caught my attention. Is this was not someone who was going to give up and just sit in the cow field and let life pass him by. No, this is a person who's going to pick up his boots, and start living life and go forward. And that's, I think, something that like I said, everyone has capable within them. Some people don't know how to reach out to that, but some do. And I liked how this character took control. Even if he didn't have much to control. I mean, he took control, at least of himself and whoever that was with him.
I liked his perseverance. I really liked the way he just kept going and just didn't give up. And I still think about present day people who this whole problem with their lives, that they find themselves not only unemployed, but they couldn't get their job back if they wanted it because it doesn't even exist anymore. And I think one of the first things that a lot of these people do is look for someone to blame or look for some explanation that makes sense, and there isn't anyone to blame, and there isn't any explanation. So
there could even be, like, say, a circumstance, like an earthquake, so forth. But like I said, you can't just stay as it is. You have to keep on struggling to get better, because what you've got just isn't, making you happy. So let's try, But
it does take a lot of moral strength to keep doing that in the face of all that adversity, especially if you have a family that you have to support, if you have people who are depending on you. I mean, the pressure on people like that today is enormous.
Correct. Correct.
So,
can I ask you, what was your favorite part of the Lost King?
I like the scene with the wyvern and the Empress Alexandra when she's out there fighting this dragon, and he comes up on her trying to fight this dragon and tries to help. She doesn't want any help. I thought
for me that
funny.
was magical, because you always think of Sleeping Beauty as an example, where Prince Charming comes and fights off the dragon. It goes to save her,
Well, she didn't want to be saved.
That's what I found was so interesting.
Just wanted to
she
get
had
this
it
done
under control.
Yeah. So I thought that was cute. That was one of my favorite scenes. One of my favorite characters is also the cat, Mew. And Mew turns out to be the favorite character of a lot of people. I had no idea how many fans the cat was going to have, but she has her own little fan club. So that was interesting, too.
Is that she just seems like a cat that you've owned in the past or that you've known. Basically, I felt by the end of the book that I could physically stroke and play with the cat for the simple reason I felt like I knew the cat in its mannerisms and how it did stuff, and I liked that it was very loyal.
Well, I have cats. I've had cats for a long time, and I think a lot of writers have cats. I know some writers have dogs, but I think a lot of writers have cats because they're a little bit easier to ignore if you're on a blue writing streak, and you can say to the cat, "No, I can't take you out for a walk right now. I'm writing a battle here. I can't." Whereas a dog, you got to take the dog out for a walk 2 or 3 times a day. You can't ignore a dog. You have to stop what you're doing and go walk the dog. Well, a cat, you can say, go take a nap or something, and they'll kind of give you a nasty look, but they'll go take a nap, and then they'll come back later and forgive you. So cats are a little bit less demanding, I guess, because they're so independent. So I think that's possibly why so many writers have cats for a pet instead of dogs. But that's I don't have any scientific studies to back that up. That's just my anecdotal, conclusion there.
Now, do understand, as I'm asking questions, I'm being very careful not to give away the ending or too much of the plot, but there is one question that I wanted to ask. How did you feel about writing Dolores? Because Dolores was, in essence, a small character part, but nonetheless, she was very influential on how King Bewilliam reacted and acted in the storyline.
I felt bad about Dolores, but she was, there are a lot of people who are like that too. A lot of the people in the story were inspired by either someone I knew or someone I was aware of, and I felt bad about Dolores. So it was
very personal to you, is that correct?
Yeah. So that's just how it goes for some people.
Well, with Dolores, one thing I just wanted to mention is that he knew that he had a choice to take her or not. And Dolores was not a responsible person, and he was trying to be. It was like yin and yang. She lived day to day, and he, was more conscious on the future and what he was going to achieve. It was two different people there. And yet he did care about her to want to try to take her. And he kept on saying, well, I'm going to go back and I'm going to save her.
Mm-hmm.
And you could see the hero in him come out, concerning her. And I just love that that feedback from that, because he was actually thinking of another, not just himself.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that's the start of a very well-rounded personality. If someone can think of another, and truly want to, put their foot out for them, I think that's wonderful.
Well, I think he did have good intentions as far as she was concerned, but sometimes good intentions are not enough.
Well, I like that because truly, I think everyone in life has had that type of situation. One helps them or something, and back to it. That's part of life. So I'm glad you included that in. It made it for a more well-rounded book.
Well, I think we're having a little bit of technical difficulties here. I think I've lost. I think I've lost you here.
Hang on one second. Keep on speaking.
Okay.
One moment. We're having technical difficulties. 1 second.
Okay.
You think you're listening? You hear me now?
I'll just keep babbling on here.
No, we're fine. We're fine.
If you're hearing,
can you hear me now?
Oh, yes, I can. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Wonderful.
All right.
I believe my head might have got lowered. I do apologize.
Oh, okay.
Can you hear me now? Like I said, right now we are all live.
Yeah.
We'll fix it, but we want to keep your attention and definitely be able to have an excellent chat. And we are Devorah Fox, the Lost King, and also I apologize for the interruption. I want to ask you a few questions. What has life been like now? Just books here for an actual.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm still experiencing technical difficulties.
You still are experiencing technical difficulties.
Yeah. So I missed your last question. Yes.
Can you hear me now?
No.
No. Okay. Hang on one second. Hang on. Please. A moment. I'm just trying to fix that now.
Okay.
But I still hear you fine. Can you hear me okay now?
Yes.
Good. It's my headset. Something's going on with that headset, so I'm going to be very careful with it right now, seeing that it's acting so temperamental.
Yeah.
Now, when you published this book, I mean, what was it? What was your was it something you searched for? What was the reaction when it finally got published?
I'm sorry. Can you ask that question again? Because I'm still not hearing all. All
right. Hang on one second. What reaction when you finally got the loss? Can you hear me now? Yep. One moment. Ms. Fox, can you hear me?
Yes. Partially.
Okay, what we're going to do is, because we're having some slight difficulty, I still want you to stay on the line.
Okay.
But we're going to just run a review right now.
Okay. Okay.
We're just going to fix our issues. So please hang on. We are coming right back.
Okay.
Author's Chat. We're doing a book review on Seduced by Innocence, the Seduced Saga, Book 1 of Rose's Trilogy by Kimberly Kincaid. For all the star-crossed lovers of the world think it's impossible. It's not. Never give up on love. Rose awoke from a passionate dream in frustration. Just a dream. Always a dream. It could never be more than that. Not with my dream man, not with any man, she thought. My heart ached for Rose's yearning for love and passion. Her thinking that she will never know love was so sad. Such disappointment for her, I thought. Rose is 19 years old, lives with her mom, her younger sister Jasmine, and loyal dog Sandy in a covenant of witches. Rose is very sheltered due to her dangerous magical ability. Her best friend is a witch named Ocean, who has control of the water spirit. Ocean encourages Rose to embrace life, live and love, and experience new adventures, to break away from her sheltered life, behaviors her mom has refused to allow her to do. Rose also has a secret admirer, Blake, who she sees as a childhood friend only. Rose is afraid to touch anyone, to get close to anyone, for her, her magic secrets can be dangerous, fatal. Derek, who has magical secrets of his own, is a firstborn son whose father desperately wants him to take over the successful family business. Derek fights against the responsibility and restraints of business and family secrets, simply seeing and trying to be his own man, walking in his own footsteps. Derek, while roaming across the country, is called back home when, after a mysterious accident occurs to his younger brother Dean, injuring him. Derek wants to leave as soon as he arrives, until he meets Rose while working at his job teaching karate. Impressed with Rose's determination, Derek asks her on a first date. Well, the date goes terribly wrong. With Rose being attacked by 2 street thugs, Derek saves Rose from the thugs and realizes he has fallen in love at first sight with her. Will she accept him if she finds out his family are powerful druids and werewolves? Does love have a chance? Can love overcome all the odds and secrets? Seduced by Innocence, well, the story was great. Plot and characters were very winning and sound. The story was a perfect read for Valentine's Day reading. I was rooting for Rose and Derek to come together, but, unfortunately the grammar and the editing was bad. There were repeated errors. It definitely disrupted the telling of the tale. I found a lot of words misspelled that just by reading the story out loud, the mistakes would have been found. I'm sorry, unfortunately, software can only catch so much. Because of this, I give the story 4 stars out of 5. If the story gets edited after February 16th, 2013, then 5 stars. Now, the author ended the story with a lot of open plot lines, ready for the next book in the saga. The next book is called Seduced by Pain, Rose's Trilogy number 2. The Seduced Saga, which just came out on February 12th, 2013. The Seduced Saga beginning with the first novella, Seduced by Innocence. This will be a 5-part series. The book is sold on Amazon.com. I could not locate it on Barnes & Noble. But, like I said, it was an excellent read. I'm definitely sure that you will like it. And I do encourage the reader to look further for the other novels and try them out. Absolutely. Don't just read a book. Find out everything about it. Reader Radio. Okay, welcome back. Now, this is Author's Chat with Janice Landry, and I have as my guest here Miss Devorah Fox. She is the author of the day here, and her book is The Lost King, and we were just talking about that. What was the hardest part to write on that?
The ending, because when I started it, I thought I knew how it was going to end. And I got about 3/4 of the way through the book and realized it's not going to end that way. It can't possibly end that way. And I had no idea how it was going to end until I wrote my way into the ending. The ending was difficult. That's not what I thought was going to happen. So it was a kind of a surprise to me.
Wow. I think that's wonderful, because it just goes to show that the book just actually came from its own. You know, it just grew.
It did very much. Part of that I credit to the whole marathon writing process. The challenge for National Novel Writing Month is to write 50,000 words in 30 days. And you have to write, in order to keep pace, you have to write 1,667 words a day. Now, I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but there were days when it would take me all day to do that, because I really didn't know what was going to happen. I was kind of making it up as I went along. And you can't, to a certain extent, you cannot stop. You can't really overthink this too much. You don't have time. And so if you're going to take full advantage of this particular process, then you are going to just almost like take your hands off the wheel and let the book and the characters tell you what should happen next. And so your job then is to listen carefully and write that down and not try to second guess. And that's why then when I went back to look at it and to edit it, why I was surprised that it actually hung together, because it seems like a very extemporaneous process, but because I didn't outline, a lot of the characters just sort of presented themselves, and I was impressed at how well it came together. But I think that there are some authors who will tell you that we don't really write, we channel these things. This comes from someplace else, and we're just the funnel that gets it down onto paper. And so that's why when I was writing it, there were parts where I didn't know what happened. I had lots of little digital Post-it notes throughout the manuscript that said, something happens here. Come back later and figure out what happens here. But, yeah, the hardest part was the ending, because as I got into the book, I realized it was going someplace completely different. And so now it was like, okay, this is interesting. And I don't think I'm steering the ship anymore. Somebody else is steering the ship. So.
Well, let me ask you this. Does it take you a long time to write a book? What is it? How long did this book take to write?
Well, as I said, I wrote 50,000 words of it in a month, but then chipped away at the rest of it pretty much on and off for 12 months after that. I wrote more and then did a bunch of editing.
Was the editing more work than the writing?
No. I think the writing is harder, but I've always been a better editor than a writer. And I think writing and editing are really two different exercises. I would even say I think you use two different parts of your brain. When you're editing, you step back and you look at the whole picture, and you look to see, does it hang together, and do the different parts support themselves, and you look at the character arcs, and you look at the pacing, and you just kind of look at the mechanics of the whole thing. How does it hang together? When you're writing, it's for me, that's harder to really be immersed in the world, to really hear what the characters are saying, to see what they're wearing, to smell what they're smelling. It's almost like having to get into a trance state. And to me, it's hard to get into that trance state, and then it's exhausting when you come out of it. The writing for me is a lot of work. Editing to me is more, it's like art and craft. I think writing is art and editing is craft. And to me, the editing's a little easier to do. But I've been doing editing for decades, and I've edited other people's novels. And to me, when you're editing, it's almost like it's so clear what needs to happen so that the work is stronger, so that it comes across better.
Aren't you afraid that when you edit that you might destroy the true, I guess the seed of what that book is?
No, I don't, because when you're editing, you're using different techniques in order to bring things out better. For example, you decide to organize it a little bit differently so that it makes more sense, so it doesn't wander all over the place. There's a lot in terms of pacing, and I have been told by a number of readers that they could not put the book down, and I am really proud to hear that because I put a lot of work into the pacing. It's very deliberate to create that effect. And then there's such a thing as proportion, where some things that happen in the book are very significant, and so you want to spend a lot of words on them. You want that particular scene to go on for a number of pages because it's important. Other things are not quite that important, and you do not want to risk boring your reader by going on and on and on for something that isn't that important. So
it is definitely fine. And do excuse me, I'm sorry. There is a few second gap, so sometimes I might talk, might come on, but I'm not trying to do that.
Okay.
One thing that I wanted to ask is, you spent so long writing this. What did you come out of it personally?
Now I'm a novelist. All my life, I mean, I've been writing professionally for decades, and people say to me, well, what do you do? And I say, well, I'm a writer. And they say, oh, yeah? What have you written? And I say, oh, I wrote a 500-page textbook on how to drive a tractor-trailer. And they go, oh.
They don't know what to say.
It's sort of like, okay, that's not exactly something I'm going to rush right out and get. So then they, what they really want to hear is, what novel have you written? So when I did National Novel Writing Month, I got to the end of it and I finished the book, and it was like, okay, now I've written a novel. So people ask, well, what do you do? And I say, well, I'm a writer. Oh, well, what have you written? Well, I've written a novel. And they would say, oh, well, where can I get it? And it was like, oh, so they don't mean just what have I written that they can buy and read? What have I written that's been published? Oh, I get it. Okay, so then I had to go ahead and publish it. So now when people say, what do you do? I can say, I'm a writer. And they say, oh, what have you written? And I say, oh, I've written The Lost King, and you can get it from Amazon, or you can go down to the Port Aransas Art Center and you can get a copy, or you can go to the Estelle Star Gallery in Rockport and get a copy. And it's like, oh, okay. So that's something they can use. That's news they can use. So I have a whole new identity now. So
do you like it?
Yeah, I like it. Yeah. And now I'm writing the second one, and that is, to me, was such a revelation. I really did not envision that The Lost King was going to be part of a series, but people have told me they want to read another novel, they want me to write another novel, and I have had a number of people say, well, okay, so what happens next? And I went back and took a look at it and went, well, by golly, they're right. You know, there's more to the story that needs to be told. And so now I am working on the second book. The working title for that is The King's Ransom.
Oh, okay.
In the course of talking to people who have read the book, I have come to a different understanding of who King William is at heart than what I thought I knew who he was, but I have learned I've learned things about him through other people's eyes, and that has inspired the book that I'm working on now. I hope to have that out in June.
Oh, okay, that would be exciting. My personal experiences with King William, when he first came on in the storyline, he was, well, he didn't know who he was. That was a mystery to him. But the type of person he was not a caring individual. And I'd like to see the fact that he was slowly but surely changing. Other things were mattering, and you got to see the true evolution of a person changing. And that was exciting and very relatable to me, because I'm not the same person I was, like, say, in high school. I mean, the body shape and everything, close, but no, I mean, I've changed mentally and emotionally since that time. I've liked the fact that he was growing as a person.
Well, I think sometimes adversity can sometimes make us sour and cynical, and other times adversity, our own personal adversities, can make us more sensitive to other people's hardships and more compassionate about other people's suffering. And I think that is something that King Bewilliam learned through his own hardships. But, you know, being a king, running a kingdom, is a whole different exercise, a whole different responsibility, requires a whole different type of character than just being a civilian, a commoner. So to a certain extent, the whole experience of losing his throne, losing his kingdom, in a way, was a liberating opportunity for him, gave him an opportunity that he didn't really have as a king, where you have to make hard decisions. So you have to decide what is best for the majority of people, and you can't really spend a whole lot of time worrying about the 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 people who are going to be inconvenienced by this decision, because you have to do what's best for most people. Well, you know, in this story, he did not have to make decisions like that for maybe the first time in a long time. All he had to do was make decisions for himself and the people in his immediate, who are in his life at the immediate moment. So it's an odd opportunity, and I think when we're down and we're hurting and we're inconvenienced and we're stressed, we really don't see the opportunity in it. But if we can, then we can change, exercise different parts of our personality. It's what do they say? This cliche, I guess, about a word in Chinese can either mean crisis or opportunity. It's the same word, something like that. So
that's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. One thing that I noticed was the fact that he was always looking to try to belong. Even though he really wanted to go back to his kingdom and find out what happened, his sons, wherever he arose, he ended up making his own little niche where people missed him, valued his input and thoughts. And the whole thing, each venture that he'd go on, I would look and say, well, does he belong here? Can he, unpack his bags and stay and be happy? And each time that he arrived at a destination, he was exploring that. That's what I felt, because your book, in many ways, even though it's very simple, it's actually far more profound in the sense of what he was looking for. And I found that I could relate that. I've been many places in my life, and there were places when I thought for sure that was my home. Yet, I would look around again and no, this is my home, And that happens to a lot of people, because we are constantly looking for a place where we feel safe and well protected and taken care of. And for someone to suddenly just wake up and not know who you are, those things don't exist. You don't know who to turn to, who's your friend, who's your loved one. And to find them is an ongoing journey and search.
Well, that was one of the things that intrigued me about the whole situation. What I wanted to explore in the course of writing the book, which is when you have lost all those things that have defined you, your family, your job, where you live, the community that you're in, the friends that you have, when you have lost all of that, who are you? What's left? And
earlier that you mentioned your town and how very close-knit it is. People are doing things they never expected to do. Is that a place where you yourself feel that you belong?
That's an interesting question, because to a certain extent I am reporting on what's going on, and I feel as though I am on the outside looking in at it and trying to report about it and describe it to people who are not here. And I don't know that I ever really stopped to immerse myself in it. And I don't know that that's necessarily a bad thing or that I'm uncomfortable with that. I actually like being, in this kind of observer role. That's an interesting question.
Well, was there one thing I'm looking for, because you seem to get a lot of strength from your community, even your family. Who do you think was most responsible in helping you be an author, achieving that?
My parents, definitely. We were bookish people. I started reading at a very, very early age. My parents read to me. They loved reading books. We were book people. So I grew up with words, with books. In fact, I did not major in English when I went to college because I already knew English. Why do I need to study it? And it took me actually many years, probably about 5 years after graduating college, to get my first writing job, because I didn't look for a writing job, because I just assumed everybody could write. I didn't think
that's not the case.
I didn't think this was any kind of a special skill. I just assumed everybody could write. And I had a boss who said, "No, not everybody can. You are a skilled writer, and people will pay you to write." And I thought, they will? Wow! How cool is that? But I was 27 before that happened. And then after that, I started looking for and getting writing jobs. But if she hadn't have said that, I probably would have gone through my whole life thinking that this was no big deal, So I guess I owe it to her, too. My parents and my friend Annette, my friend and mentor Annette, who said, yeah, you don't have to go back to school to get a marketable skill. You already have one. You just don't know it. So,
well, where do you get your ideas from?
I think just things that are in the news, things that happen every day, and then I find myself going, well, what if it didn't happen that way, or what if this happened? And then I'm mentally off and running. I was just reading something today in the news. I don't even remember what it was now. And I found myself thinking, what if it turned out this way? And then I started getting an idea for a novel, and I was going, oh, no, I don't need another idea for a novel. I have a zillion ideas for a novel. I don't need another one. But it's more like it's a what if. What if it turned out this way? What if it went this way? What if it didn't end that way? But just from things that just happen normally, or things that are in the news, or just silly stuff. I will say you had asked about belonging earlier. And the first novel that I tried to write, my very first drawer stuffer that I wrote back in the 90s, was about belonging and the need to affiliate, the need to be part of something. And it is a very strong motivator. And I wanted to work with somebody, a character, who is an outsider and feels alienated and wants to belong and hasn't quite found the right, hasn't quite found home.
Oh, okay.
And I probably will. I've learned a lot more about writing since I worked on that novel, and I really do want to get it out of the drawer one of these days and bring it back into the light and work with it some more, because I still kind of like the story. I'd like to get it out there one day. And my sister keeps bugging me about it. She really liked it, and she wants me to get it.
Who is your most important inspiration? Is that your sister?
No, I'd say my friends. Just the people in my circle. Sometimes even people I don't know. Just humans. Humans are just so interesting. In the human condition, we are just so challenged to do the right thing, to be good to each other, to be good to ourselves. It sounds like it ought to be easy, but it's not. We have so many things that distract us from that path, so many things that make it difficult to do the right thing. So I like that. I like to look at that challenge.
Everyone seems to have, like, say, a mentor figure. If you could have dinner as an author with one person, either dead or alive, who would it be, and why?
I guess it would be my late husband, because he was an amazing person, very smart, but humble. People were always underestimating him because he did not stride into a room and beat you over the head with everything he knew and drop names and all like that. He was just a very unassuming fellow, but he was very perceptive, very smart. He didn't miss anything, and he was so good at that. And he was also very warm, very good at making friends instantly, which I'm not good at all. And he was my best cheerleader. He just really wanted to see me do well and encouraged me to do things that even I really didn't have any confidence in, but he was convinced that I could do it, and that his confidence gave me a lot of confidence. So, and I feel badly that he is not here for this, because this whole novelist career was something that he wanted for me, and I'm sorry that he didn't live to see it. So it would be great to be able to sit down with him again and say, "Hey, look, I finally did it. I went ahead and did it. What you wanted me to do? What do you think? Is this cool?" So that'd be special. I have a number of friends that I made when I moved to Texas, who all of whom have passed away in the last 3 or 4 years. Same thing. Real cheerleaders of mine who would really have enjoyed this whole novelist thing. I'd love to have them all back. They would be having a blast with this. They'd be having a lot of fun. And I'm sorry that they didn't live to see this.
Well, I do say that you're very lucky to have someone that believed so greatly in you. I am lucky enough to say that, yes, there is a person in my life as such. That's my husband, David. And like I said, to have just someone is just a remarkable thing, because it really gives you that ability to be able to go as far as you can go.
Especially for something like this whole novelist thing, which sometimes seems like the most incredible folly and basically Sisyphus pushing a rock up a hill. I mean, it is incredibly difficult. You basically have to wind yourself up every day to go out and fight this fight. The writing is hard, and then the whole business of publishing and having your work out there, it's very revealing. You're very vulnerable, and it's important to have people in your life who keep insisting that you need to stay in the ring and you need to keep slugging it out, because it would be really easy to say, okay, that's it, I'm throwing in the towel. I'm not doing this anymore. This is crazy. This is a lot of work, and I'm getting beat up, and I don't want to get beat up anymore. So it's important. And I think that's what is the value of writers' groups. Now, I honestly don't know how anybody does this without belonging to a writer group. The support that I've gotten from people in writing groups has been invaluable, and I have learned a lot, too. I have been so privileged to be able to spend time with some absolutely astoundingly good writers, and I have learned so much about good writing from doing read and critique with other writers who are very talented. But one of the special things about a writers group is that other writers get this. They understand it. They understand this whole lunacy. Not only do they understand it, but they don't think it's lunatic. They think it's perfectly normal to walk around hearing, like, say, conversations being had by people who don't exist. And I think anybody who is going to spend any kind of serious time writing has got to find a writer group and have that kind of support. That's invaluable, and I appreciate I've belonged to 3 writer groups here, and when I lived in Arizona, I belonged to 2 or 3, and I have really appreciated every single one of them and have met some wonderful writers and have been exposed to some wonderful writing, so the whole thing's just been nothing but positive and valuable.
I often mention to people that, yes, if you can get help from a fellow author, to critique, help go over storyline or plot, that's always, that's always a welcome to have a different person other than your own eyes see it. Because sometimes, well, those glasses do look rose-colored when you're looking at the same manuscript over and over again. You don't see any other new ways to go. And if someone totally unique is looking at it, it just opens the whole world. The sun, has come out. And you get, if someone can be brutally honest, even though you don't want to hear it, that does help you become a better writer. Truly, it does. The writer groups are excellent. I do encourage any future authors that are listening in to contact them. They're not going to bite. They're understanding where you're coming from, and hopefully, will help you create a better work by doing so. Absolutely. Now, you've had a book published. How could you give advice to a new writer to start and hopefully, get it all done, get it all published? What could you suggest to them?
Well, the whole business of getting published has really changed.
In what way?
Well, even back in the mid-'90s when I wrote the first one, you could take your manuscript down to a press, to a printer, and you could pay them $10,000 and have them make up a bunch of books. And then there you would be with a garage full of books, and your responsibility would be to now get them out there. And not only would you have had a lot of money to invest to do that, but there was the deck was really stacked against you because the publishing industry has the distribution really kind of all locked up, and it was really difficult to break into the distribution chain back then. So essentially, your really only choice was to try to get a publisher, get somebody else to publish it for you, somebody who was in the loop. And pretty much, I'm sorry.
No, I was. The reason why I asked that is, as you were mentioning, Bumpers to Bumpers came out in the '80s when there was no internet.
Oh, right.
There was no internet, and now you've got this book out, The Lost King, which definitely there is. So I know things have changed since then, from when it first came out till currently, and how you distribute a book is different. What factors did you find that were the most overwhelming, or that you could conquer?
Well, when we did Bumper to Bumper, again, we had absolutely no idea what we were doing. This is so Andy Hardy, let's put on a play kind of thing. We didn't realize we were publishers. We really didn't see ourselves as publishing a book. The industry needed something, and we were endeavoring to fill a need that we had identified. We didn't actually realize that by doing what we were doing that made us publishers, and there was a lot that we didn't know that we should have known when we started, and found out later, like how to get an ISBN number or copyrights. Things like, we were amazing babes in the wood, but we were self-publishers before anybody even used that term very much. So I tell people we've been self-publishing since before self-publishing was cool. But now there are far more options for self-publishers, and the whole business. Well, that was I should also nonfiction is a whole different job than publishing fiction. With nonfiction, you pretty much know who your readers are, and you know where they are, and it's not an impossible task to reach them and say, hey, we have this publication and we think you'll find it interesting, we think you'll find it useful, and then your target audience says, hey, you're right, I'm so glad you told us about it, and we'll take 10 of them. Fiction is very different. The world is your potential market, your target market. How are you going to find the handful of people who are out there looking for a book about a guy who wakes up in a cow pasture and doesn't know how he got there? How do you find them? How do you reach them to tell them that this book is between covers and that they might like reading it? That's a whole different nut to crack. So the challenge of publishing nonfiction and the challenge of publishing fiction are really two different things. For people who have a novel in them, I would say, go ahead, get it done, and however you can, get it out there. I was not at all prepared for how validating it was to get the reception that I got.
Can you explain?
Well, I didn't think of myself as a novelist, as a creative person, even though writing a textbook involves a lot of creativity. It's still writing, it's still editing, it's graphic design, it's layout. It's a very creative process, but I did not really appreciate the creativity. To me, it seemed more assembly, than anything. Whereas a novel is magical. This stuff comes from, you don't know where it comes from. I mean, one minute you're writing something and the next minute like the dragon, the wyvern in The Lost King. When I started the book, I really did not set out to write a fantasy. It was more of an allegory is what I was trying to do. And there I am writing the scene, and now I've got a dragon. Oh, I don't know where the dragon came from, but there was a dragon. Well, now it's a fantasy because it's got a dragon in it. So, and yet, in retrospect, dragons, particularly in the context of The Lost King, is a very important symbol to me. We all have dragons in our life that block our path, that destroy, dragons that we have to confront and conquer in order to move on. So the dragon on a symbolic level ended up being very important. But I think for beginning novelists, there's so much advice out there. There are so many rules. Do this, don't do that. Do this, don't do that. 10 things never to do. 10 things always to do. And yeah, I think you need to at some point come back to that because a lot of it is good advice. A lot of it is how to be a better writer. But when you start, I don't think you should pay attention to any of it. I think you should just do it. Don't put, obstacles in your path. Don't read a lot of advice. Just write for a while. Just get it out there. That's one of the values of the National Novel Writing Month Marathon, is that you don't have time to second guess. You don't have time to self-criticize. All you have time, if you're going to get this done, if you're going to get 50,000 words done in 30 days, all you have time to do is write. You don't have time to edit or judge. Just write. And yet you get to the end and you look back at what you've done and you go, wow, that's pretty good stuff. And I think if you start out by reading all the how-tos and all the rules and all the warnings, you might be off-put and you'll never get it done. You'll be turned off before you even start. So I would encourage people.
That is a common thing that happens with authors. Now, Ms. Deborah, one thing I wanted to ask is how easy is it to get involved with that? Is there a sign-up fee or anything else involved with that?
Oh, you mean the self-publishing?
Yes.
Yeah, well, it can be. It can be very involved and it can be very expensive. It wasn't for me, but I've been doing this for 25 years. I've been doing publications. I've been doing layout. I've been doing pre-press. So I was able to do everything that needed to be done to submit a manuscript that was properly formatted and met all the specs because I knew what I was doing. Now, some of these are rather specialized knowledge areas, and most people don't. And the learning curve for it is very steep and doesn't have anything to do with writing. So if you are a writer and that's what you want to be and you really don't want to be a graphic artist or you don't want to learn pre-press and you don't really care about 300 DPI versus 96 DPI or CMYK versus RGB and all these obscure things that you have to know in order to be a publisher, then yes, you have to pay someone who does know, one way or the other. You either have to do it yourself or you have to pay someone who knows what they're doing. So you have to go into it pretty much knowing that, yes, it's going to cost you some money. But with all the self-publishing print-on-demand options that are out there, it doesn't cost what it used to. There are a lot more options. It is definitely caveat emptor. You need to shop around. There are a number of different publishing opportunities out there. You have to read all the fine print. You have to figure out which one is going to work out the best for you. So I read a lot of blogs and forums where people are bellyaching about, you know, this ended up costing, or I'm not going to make as much money, or whatever. And it's like, you know, that was all out there before you started. You just didn't read the fine print. Well, you need to read the fine print. But that said, and the fact that it is not easy and it is not free, it is a whole lot easier and it's a whole lot less expensive than it was, 15 years ago when these options didn't exist. So, and, you know, there's a lot to be said for deciding, what do you want? Do you want to be on the bestseller list? Do you want to make a ton of money from your work? Or do you just want somebody to read it and like it, hopefully? If all you want is somebody to read it and to like it, there are all kinds of forums out there where you can upload your work and people will read it and say nice things about it, and no, you don't make any money and you're giving your work away for free, but, you know, so what? If your goal is just to share your work, there are lots and lots of places out there where you can share your work and people are delighted to have it. So there are those options too. I think not everybody, you don't have to make a business out of it. It doesn't have to have commercial potential necessarily, unless that is, what you want. And I think it helps to be honest with yourself. What are you looking to do? Do you just want some fans who like your writing and want to read another short story of yours or another poem or another novel or whatever, or do you want to try to make a living doing this? I mean, those are two different things and require two different approaches.
Now, of which 3 accomplishments that you've accomplished in your life are you most proud of?
That's an interesting question. I don't know that I've got a real quick answer to that. I'm a really difficult person to impress. I don't think I've impressed myself yet.
Okay. Well, let me ask you another question. What do you consider to be your greatest strengths?
Well, I'm a good writer. People enjoy what I write. I like the reactions that I get to the stories that I do for the Island Moon. I just recently wrote about 2 restaurants in Port Aransas, and the restaurant owners read the stories, and both of them said to me, "We really, really like the story that you wrote. You described exactly what we are trying to do with our restaurant. You really got what we're trying to accomplish, and you really expressed it for people, and we were really pleased." And that's very satisfying. So I'm a good writer. That doesn't, that doesn't put a man on the moon, or it's not a cure for cancer, but, and with the textbook too, people, we have probably, with that textbook, launched 1 million driving careers in the last 25 years.
I believe that. I believe that very sincerely.
And there were a number of people who were working dead-end jobs, who didn't have much of a future, who now have a good job and a career that they are proud of, and they can support their family and have a little extra in their lives. And we helped by providing a textbook that helped them to get through their training course and get their license. And that's a good thing. That's something to be proud of.
Absolutely, absolutely. What I wanted to do, Ms. Deborah, is simply give you the ability to have a little bit of a timeout. We do have some book reviews that we've done, and I'd like to make them available to our audience so that they can enjoy them as well. And I'm just going to give you a little bit of a timeout so that way we can do so.
Okay.
One moment. Reader Radio's Authors Chat book review. Today we're reviewing Loose Screw, Dusty Deals Mystery Series. This is by the author Ray Davies and Lori Devote. It's written by Lori Devote under Ray Davies' pen name. Now, we meet Lucy Matthews. She is a lady that has never developed a serious backbone. Confrontation is not her strong point. She's the owner of Dusty Deals Antique Store. Now, while attending an auction of antiques and collectibles from the wealthy Denton Deer Estate with her best friend Rhonda Simpson, the owner of Spirit Books, she notices mysterious strangers from out of town. A fast-paced auction draws her attention. A deerskin-clad man with dubious intent and an older husband and wife that want to add to their museum are bidding fast and furious for a Medicine Man collectible. Now, high prices abound, but the Medicine Man collectible is eventually sold to the buckskin-clad man for $40,000. Days later, as Lucy and her dog Keisha exit out the back door of her antique shop, Dusty Deals, they find the same buckskin-clad man from the auction house outside, murdered with a knife stuck deep into his chest behind her store in an alley. Now, Detective Peter Blake investigates the homicide and can't help not admiring and observing Lucy, too. Her former editor, Ted, from the Daily News local newspaper, he rehires her as an investigative reporter, encouraging her to dig deeper into the murder case. The more she investigates, the more Lucy learns it's okay to stand up for oneself and one's beliefs and not be pushed around if she is to try to find true happiness. It also doesn't hurt to have confidence when a murderer is on the loose. I love the playful interaction between Keisha, her dog, and Lucy. As a former dog owner, I could relate to anyone who has ever said animals don't talk. They sure do. In fact, just with sounds and mannerisms instead of voice and words. Now, with her best friend Rhonda, there were issues of trust and suspicion that were thankfully resolved. And I love the storyline. Unfortunately, although I read fast, I just wish more adventure and character development was happening before each clue appeared. I didn't like how Lucy had pretty much no confidence, and hope in the next few books of this series that is expanded upon as she learns to be her own woman. It was a very relatable story, although the plot could have been faster and the characters more fleshed out. I like that Lucy was clueless concerning the feelings that were thrown out there by Detective Peter Blake, and I look forward to that relationship spicing up. Now, I give this 4 out of 5 stars. Although I love the mystery and I think the author was marvelous, I just wished for more action and danger during the search for clues. But it's still, nonetheless, a great mystery read. Now, this is part of a series. There are 2 other books concerning the series that are currently out, and although I have not reviewed them, I do encourage the readers to investigate them and check for yourself if this is a good read or not. Okay. Now, this book is sold both in Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com, and of course at your local bookseller. Again, just don't read a book. Find out everything about it. Reader Radio. Welcome to Reader Radio's Authors Chat book review. Today we're reviewing Winter's Awakening, The Meta-Humans Emerge by author Karen Llewellyn. Dr. Margot Pullman was hired by the Institute for their top-secret project. She wanted to develop a cure for disorders like autism. Instead, was introduced to 3 human test subjects, a 4-year-old girl, a 2-year-old boy, and a 1-week-old boy. Once unwanted babies, now human test subjects of the infinite serum. Now, after thinking for years she was helping children, instead she had become part of a machine that was torturing them. That's when she snapped. 12 years later, now Meg, the oldest, is now 15 years old. Alec is 14 and Evan is 12 years of age. They have been homeschooled their entire life, living on an isolated ranch in Texas. They are skilled in history, math, literature, and also have the ability to survive battle and, if necessary, kill. When their mother becomes missing after attending a seminar to give a speech, the 3 special children discover they are children their mother stole from the Institute when they were small, which is why the Institute is currently after them, and they now have to band together using their special powers. With the help of Dr. Andrews and his son and a coyote named Maze, they try to free their mom, Dr. Margot Pullman, from the Institute's evil clutches. I liked how each chapter was done by a different child. It gave more personality and character to each one of the 3 children as you listened to their thoughts, and as each new development arose, you grew to like and understand them. They each became an individual in the reader's eyes, 3-dimensional. Well-rounded characters that you could definitely relate to. The one common tie was the love of each child to their mother, who had left her professional life behind to live with her life on the run, pursued by the Institute, raising 3 children with no assistance at all. I love the powerful love that their mom, Margot, felt for them, too. It showed how powerful their love as a family is. This is a story of how each child learns and utilizes their special skills to attempt to save their captive mother, Full of action and unusual plot twists you never expected, the book is an adventurous ride filled with emotion and suspense, told in a matter-of-fact way through the three children's eyes. I give it 5 stars out of 5. This is the first book in the series with Saga 2, 3, and 4. They're out and currently in the stores right now, and Saga 5 will be coming out shortly. All 4 are sold at Amazon.com. While I have not read the sequels to this series yet, and I was not able to do so in time for this review, so I do leave that up to the reader to discover these novels. I could not find this book at this time on Barnes & Noble, but I do encourage you to look it over. This is an excellent read, and I'm sure you're going to love it. Don't just read a book. Find out everything about it. Reader Radio. Yes, this is Janice Landry again for Authors Chat, and I'm back here with our author, Miss Devorah Fox, and she has written the book The Lost King, and we're just going to ask her some more information concerning that and her as a writer, publisher, and more. Now, Ms. Devorah, you're there?
Yes.
Wonderful. I did want to just ask a question or two about The Lost King. You mentioned that there were alternative endings that you were considering for your book because you said it did not go as you originally had planned. How did you choose and know which was the right ending? Because that's probably one of the hardest things to do.
Well, when I started, I thought it was going to end happily ever after. And as the character of King Bewilliam developed, it was clear that it wasn't going to end happily ever after. So in fact, in a way, it hasn't ended, which is why I'm writing another book, because he has more to learn about himself. So it didn't really end, and I don't even think in the one that I'm working on now that it will completely end even when I get to the end of it, if that makes any sense.
Now, if there was to be, like, say, a movie done of this book, who would you want to star in it?
Sean Astin could do King Bewilliam. He's played a much younger person in.
He was in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
he was
plays,
Sam.
He plays a much younger person in that. But I've actually seen him. I've seen him like on a, I believe it was a Law and Order episode where he played a character a little closer to his age, and that's the age that I imagined King Bewilliam to be, and that's Sean Astin's kind of how I think King Bewilliam looks. That sort of body type, and so he could do it.
If I tell you who I thought it should be, you might laugh.
Yeah.
Originally, I thought Richard Gere, simply because he has done a movie similar to this, where yes, he held a sword, did an obstacle race, and he was trying to be Sir Lancelot, I believe, in the movie. But again, then I thought, well, you need somebody that's natural, okay, that can understand and, yes, be able to move with people and be able to respond, in such a friendly, natural way. And I was kind of stuck. And when you mentioned Sean Astin, I could see him in that.
Yeah.
But you know what I came up with, and you're going to laugh? Pee Wee Herman. Only because he doesn't look royal. I mean, he would be able to go right in there into the village and not appear kingly.
Yeah, except that I see King Bewilliam as a little bit more robust than Pee Wee Herman. But yeah, that was what I was kind of going for, was somebody who was a little bit earthier, a little bit rougher around the edges than, say, a Richard Gere. Somebody just a little bit more I don't know, kind of knocked around a little bit.
Yeah, I think so. But a lot of times there's, like I said, there's comedic actors that are looking to play a serious part, and I just thought, well, maybe he would fit. But or even someone like Adam Sandler. But truly, I believe Sean Astin would do the trick. Absolutely, he was wonderful in Lord of the Rings, and I know he's done other stuff as well that has been superb. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And if it should go that way, for movies and stuff, obviously you'd be much more weller known than you are, and I'm sure even right now people stop and ask for autographs. How would you handle that type of fame?
Well, I hope, but I don't know. I think just about everybody in the world has written their Academy Award winning speech, just in case. I would hope that I would use it to encourage other people to be daring and to go ahead and write and get their writing out there. Give it a whirl. But it's hard to say. That's a good question. The problem with that kind of fame is it's very intrusive. You end up losing a lot of me time, and I think writers, maybe more than almost anybody else, need lots and lots and lots of me time. It's really hard to do a lot of writing if you've got a lot of noise going on in your life, and that kind of attention would be very distracting, I would think. I'm not entirely sure I would like it.
Mm-hmm. Now that you've written something, it's actually there. The book is out there, and you're going on for number 2, so this is the number 2 sequel. What comes first for you? Is it the actual character, the plot, what?
It's the character. I've still got. There are still things that King Bewilliam needs to experience and to learn about himself. So it's definitely the character, and then after that comes, okay, what are those experiences? How can he learn this lesson? What does he have to go through? So that the plot kind of comes after the character.
Mm-hmm. When we read your book, every person gets their response to that book is individual and unique. I myself, when I read it, it touched numbers of chords that I could relate to very easily, even down to something as simple as King William Robin playing with the kitten. And I myself, it just made me more like the character because he was so affectionate. Did you plan that on purpose, or was that something that just happened with the story?
No, that just came out. I'm not sure I even planned the cat to be in the story. The cat just sort of showed up. Mm-hmm. But it works well because it does bring out an aspect of his personality and his character that might be difficult to show otherwise, but it's really important. And I have had people remark on his relationship with the cat, and I have in the King's Ransom, which is the sequel, the one that I'm working on now, there are animals that he's involved with, and the people that I've, in the reading critique groups that I'm in, really appreciate his relationship with the animals and what it says about him. So that does serve well to say things about him without coming right out and saying them. if that makes any sense.
Oh, yeah. One thing I was very impressed with was the kind of research that you did for the book. For instance, the talking about creating an actual sword from a piece of, basically a lump of metal, was fantastic. How much research did you have to do for this to be able to come up with such vivid detail?
I ended up doing a ton of research. When I first started writing it, I wasn't going to do any. I really did not set out to do a historically accurate book. That was not a goal of mine. I kind of just wanted to tell this sort of fairy tale type story, and I didn't really care whether the details were historically accurate. And then I got to a scene where I wanted somebody to take something out of a pocket. And I found myself thinking, well, did they have pockets back then? I don't know. Did they have pockets back then? So then I had to do some research and discovered, no, they hadn't invented pockets yet. They all had like these little purses, pouches and bags and stuff, but they hadn't invented pockets. Well, after that, I stopped and researched everything, and that really slowed me down because I was doing this during National Novel Writing Month, and they tell you don't research anything. Just write it. Don't worry about it. You can go back later and research it. But I didn't want to paint myself into a corner that then I would have to paint myself out of because, well, it had to do with pockets and they didn't have pockets. So I would stop and I would do all this research, and I did all this research about swords and metals and what else have I got in there that, what towns were like, how's a castle laid out, did donkeys get along with cats? I mean, I stopped and researched everything, and the one that I'm working on now is an incredible amount of research because it's all kinds of things that I don't know anything about, so I'm having to learn all kinds of stuff that, and of course this is all 12th, 13th century kind of, so none of it is useful in modern day. This is not useful information. This is useful for anything. It's not going to help me make dinner. It's just going to get the book written. Now, there's a couple things in The Lost King that actually are not historically accurate, and I left them in there because I was sentimental about them, and I'm not going to do that with the one that I'm working on now. It's going to be as accurate historically as I can get it to be. Although, who's to say, really, that it didn't happen that way? I mean, some of this stuff is not all that precisely documented. So who's to say? I have King Bewilliam inventing spectacles. I have him inventing the bread knife. And what else does he invent? There's one other thing he invents in the story. Well, who's to say, that didn't get invented, that bread knives didn't get invented in several different places, in several different points in the Middle Ages. I mean, I'm sure that there were people who kind of got the same idea. So I thought, okay, I can let him do that.
Absolutely. Is there a favorite author that you have that, that has influenced you?
For many, many, many years, well, actually, since I was a kid, I've liked, actually, detective stories.
Sherlock Holmes?
Sherlock Holmes, yeah, but in the last few years, I've really liked Jeffrey Deaver and Greg Iles and Randy Wayne White. Who else?
You didn't say Miss Marple.
No, well, Miss Marple, when Agatha Christie was writing, books were more plot-driven than character-driven. That was just how they were done. That's what people liked, and that's what got written. Because you think about it, and Miss Marple does not change from book to book to book. Miss Marple doesn't really learn anything about herself. She doesn't undergo any character development. She solves mysteries. So the mystery is the thing. The plot is the thing. Well, that method of storytelling kind of underwent a sea change such that today stories are more character-driven than plot-driven. I think about some of the stories that I've really enjoyed, and I couldn't tell you what the crime was, what was the criminal, but I can tell you how the detective changed in that book, what he learned that he didn't know in a previous book. How did he change as a person? Because these days they are character-driven, not plot-driven. So that's why not Miss Marple, but, say, Jeffrey Deaver's Lincoln Rhyme books. Lincoln Rhyme is a quadriplegic, yep. I think. And it's interesting to see from book to book to book how he deals with his disability and the prospect that maybe he could be cured. And I couldn't tell you what the crimes were, but I can tell you the changes that Lincoln Rhyme has gone through. And he's such a compelling character. He's very fond of whiskey, and he made such a good. He so enjoys it that I went out and bought myself some because I wanted to see what the shouting was all about, and I found that I don't like it, and I ended up giving it away. But I had to try that. Oh, and then I was reading a lot of John Lesquat books. They're all set in Northern California, and those people are all drinking Chardonnay and espresso every time you turn around. Boy, I drank a lot of Chardonnay, and I drank a lot of espresso when I was reading those books because they just made it all seem so tasty, But I'm actually not really a big Chardonnay fan. I really like Zinfandel's better. But, boy, I drank a lot of Chardonnay when I was reading the John Lesquat books. So I guess I'm just very impressionable.
Well, I did want to ask you, what is a typical working day for you? And when and where do you write? Because you're such a busy person. Is there a daily writing goal?
To get some done is the goal. I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I check all my email and all this Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn, all this social networking kind of stuff that you have to do these days. And that usually takes me, a couple hours, I guess. And then I go get the only exercise I get all day. I go for a 3-mile walk. And the rest of the day I spend sitting in a chair. So that's the only exercise I get all day. And then I come back and deal with whatever, put out whatever fires have to be put out for running the publishing company. That really takes all day. That is a full-time job. I really don't have any time to do any fiction writing. And by the end of the day, I'm usually beat, and I really don't do any writing at night. I belong to some community organizations in Port Aransas, and I have meetings to go to. So I don't actually get a lot of writing done. Sometimes on the weekends I can get some done. Pretty much the way it's been working for me for the last couple of years is to do it as a marathon, to just clear the decks for 30 days and bang out 50,000 words.
I find out that that's fascinating because a lot of authors have, sometimes they just can't think of what to write. They're stuck. Does that happen to you?
Yeah. But what I read some advice somewhere, which is just start writing. Write anything. Just pick up a pen, put it on a paper. Just doodle if you have to. Just write nonsense. Just start writing anything. And that always works. It always does work. I end up thinking, I don't know what I'm going to write about today. I don't have any ideas in my head, and I just start. You just write anything, and before you know it, you've got 3 or 4 pages, and you're cranking along. So lately, one of the writer groups that I belong to has been hosting write-ins where we all meet on Facebook, and the leader says, okay, write for 15 minutes, and you all write madly for 15 minutes, and then pens down, and you take a 5-minute break, and then she says, okay, write for another 15 minutes, and we all write madly for 15 minutes. And we do that for an hour or 2 hours, and that works out really well. By the end of the night, you've written, I don't know, one gal wrote a whole chapter by the end of the night, and I'll have 3 or 5 or 10 pages or something written. But that, a lot of writers need a deadline of some kind. We wouldn't write without a deadline, and so these self-imposed deadlines or these little, games that you play with yourself to make a deadline where one doesn't exist, for me that works, and that's why the writing marathon works so well for me, because it's like, okay, I have got to get these 1,667 words done today. That is job number one. I'm not doing anything else till I get that done, and you get it done. And then, you start out and you think, wow, day 1, day 2, it's like, this mountain looming, and you can't imagine that you will actually get this done. But then you kind of get over the hump, and you've got, 25,000 words into it or 30,000 words in it, and it's a downhill slide to 50 from there. And then there you have 50,000, and then all you need is another, 25 or 30 or 50 or whatever. But adding to that doesn't seem quite as insurmountable as the first 50,000.
One thing I just want to announce to our readers, the marathon that Ms. Devorah is talking about is something that happens every November. So
yes.
It's not going on yet, but like I said, on the 11th month, yes. And this is something that anyone can enter into. I don't believe they have an age requirement.
No.
And the whole thing of it is simply get a book done before the month's over.
Yeah.
That's the whole rules, and it doesn't matter what the book is about.
Right.
It could be any genre, horror, science fiction, whatever you want. It can be. The whole idea is, if you've never done a full book before, this is your chance to try to do it.
That's exactly it.
There's lots of help with it. In fact, they have things on there that can help you, like, for instance, an ability to find different plots, as an example. People will help you with the English and the grammar and so forth. I mean, it's very structured around helping the author get it done. Lots of camaraderie. And, just like how it's easy to lose weight if you're in a group environment, again, it's easy to write if you're in a group environment as well. And it's something that a lot of writers that have never written before, if they try this, they can succeed or do succeed. So for those that might not be aware of it, and I'm sorry I didn't bring this up a little bit more sooner, but it is available for anyone to enter, and November is the month. So I do encourage people to just simply write Writer's Marathon in Google, and I'm sure that it'll come right up.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of it. I've done 3 of them. I did one.
3, okay.
Yeah, I did the first one in 2010, and then I did 2 last year. I did one in June, and then I did another one in November. So I'm a glutton for punishment.
Well, that is a lot of work, but yes, at the end you do have something to wave in your hands once you've done. Absolutely. Now, one thing that I did just want to let our readers know that, Ms. Devorah, we do appreciate you having here. I know you got up at 5 a.m., so you must be exhausted. And what we'd like to do is simply say thank you to you. We do have other features, and one amongst right now is we're going to be talking about technology and what's happening in the writing, the English, grammar, everything, even publishing worlds. For anyone that would like to listen, we'd be happy to be able to go over that and, hopefully be able to give a lot more information to you. For instance, I don't know if you're aware of it or not, but we do have a lot of information concerning e-book subscription services, especially for the mobile devices. as you know, you can download an app to be able to get on, like, say, Amazon, and also be able to get on Barnes & Noble on your computer. But many people are not aware that there is services. They may not be free. There might be a fee of some sorts that you can use to be able to get the ebooks on your mobile devices, like your cell phone, as an example. And although they may cost a fee, but you know, if this is something that this is how you read all of your ebooks is through your phone, as an example, or your tablet, this should be something for you, you know, to be able to look through. We do have one called Scooby. It's SKOOBE.com, and I encourage our readers to look this over. Now, a lot of newbie writers are looking to be able to put their printed books in different formats than just PDF. Format shifting, that's what it's called, is the way to basically change your book to different devices. Now, there are plenty of softwares out there, both free and for a cost, that will change it, as an example, a PDF to an EPUB, which is what Kindle and also Nook use. Now, there are different formats. Some formats are strictly for the telephone. You know, I mean, some formats are for a tablet, for instance, as an example. And some formats will just definitely not use. Like, for instance, Nook, you cannot put a Kindle book on a Nook. Okay, so the formatting is just too different. And there's different software that can change that format. So as a result, that you can do it. And by format shifting, I simply encourage people to go to their search engine, just write format shifting, and tell it that you want to change it from, as an example, a PDF to another format like EPUB, and you will find free software that can do that, where all you do is load up the software, pretend that you're going to print your book. Okay, once you do, what pops up, okay, is on the printer, it gives you the option, instead of sending it to the printer, to change that book. And that book will change and be deposited into your download section on your computer. And then you just simply transfer it to your cell phone as such. So this software is available. It's both free and not. So, and because there's so many different formats of it, I figured I should mention it, because a lot of times an author may submit, as an example, a PDF, but needs an EPUB and so forth. All these different formats, because there's roughly about 10 different formats, and I would like to think that they'd use just one. The most common one that people use is PDF format, and that is the oldest, and it does work with a majority of the devices, but not all. So although PDF is nice, it's good, people can read from it. In fact, there's even a way on a PDF book to be able to have it read out loud to you. Okay? It might not work on all devices, so that's the problem. Okay, so as a new author, when there's different sites that allow you to be able to put your book into it. Amongst them, let's see, the website in particular I'm thinking of is Lulu.com. That allows you to put it right in there. There are other sites as well. Now, one nice thing about it is as Miss Deborah was mentioning, when she first published her first book, Bumpers to Bumpers, you had to do it through a publisher only. There was no other way around it. Now, you can forget having to do that. You now have the ability to just simply e-publish and be done. So just something like that is available to authors now that didn't exist even 10 years ago. And e-publishing, you can do it yourself, and by doing that, it allows you to have more, basically you can pick and choose where you want to go. I mean, usually most book authors immediately think Amazon, of course, and, Barnes & Noble, because they want to be on the two most popular, but there's Sony for e-readers. I mean, and of course, just simply by getting it out, the big publishing houses still do matter. So if you do want to go to a publishing house, you can do so. It's not something that you do, but to start, it's very simple. you get the book. You need the book, of course. You also have to edit it. And I do encourage, although editing for a lot of people is not the most favorite chore of their day, have more than one person edit it. Most times what spoils a book is the fact that no one did but the software. And the software is not designed to catch everything. Little things like the word site, S-I-T-E, or else being able to view when I see you in sight of me. Oh, that's not a good example, but you get the idea. Different words mean different things. I find the word T-H-E-I-R and T-H-R-E, the theirs basically, and T-H-E-Y apostrophe, the-E, they're always misused, and that, it just bothers you when you see it. You think, well, couldn't they have caught that just by reading it out loud? And unfortunately, I have read a few books, in fact, you've heard the reviews, where, simple things like that, if they had just caught it before it went out, and I know these authors, they do review it, but you have to read the book out loud to yourself, because then you catch at least 95% of the errors, truly, because it won't make sense when you say it out loud. And if you're missing on grammar, there is a lot of different software that can catch the grammar, mind you. One site that I know that I went to, that I looked through, was called Grammarly. And Grammarly was really cool. Basically, you just paste the text into a little box, press the button, it goes through and shows you all the grammar mistakes. Period. It's Grammarly.com. And you would just go in there, and that's about as easy as it gets. It doesn't cost a cent, and you're just pasting information in there, and it's free. So, when it's so easy to catch those mistakes, spelling and so forth, nowadays they have so many different programs that are out there. One thing that I like to use is the cloud a lot, because I never know when I'm going to get a virus on my computer and have it be, basically a giant paperweight. So using on the cloud means that no matter what device that I use, I can access. Now, I do recommend the Google.com's ability to have to be on the cloud. All you do is you simply get a gmail.com email address, and that gives you access to things like the Google Drive, which used to be called their documents. But Google Drive has the ability to store everything printed that you could possibly want on the Internet. Just that alone. And then, of course, there's places to store your pictures, and so forth. But the ability to store all that means you will never, ever lose it again, because it will never touch your computer because you're viewing it from online. So simple things like viruses in your email, for instance, if it's never touching your machine, it can't harm it because it's always on the Internet, on the cloud. So there are email servers that are not on the cloud. As an example, there is one program that I can think of right off the bat called Incredimail. When it delivers an email to you, if there's a virus in it, it attacks your computer as soon as you open it up. In fact, some viruses are set to attack your computer before you open it up. It just has to hit it, And if you don't have to have that, don't. I like the capability that, as an example, if I travel, and I don't have my computer with me, say I'm borrowing someone's, I can still get all of my email on the cloud just by opening up the computer and going online and typing in google.com, or gmail.com to access it. So simple things. I know that a lot of people, there was a funny story about an author that wrote a book. He was very upset concerning it because for the simple reason he couldn't get anybody to take it. every time that he sent it out, it came back, we have no need for this right now, but thank you for approaching us, that type of thing. And, well, he dumped all of his books into a garbage can. Then he went on and looked online, and apparently somebody had grabbed the books, okay, and in fact the name of his novel was called Wild Child, and the author in particular that I'm referring to is Mr. Mike Wells, and his last 300 copies of his novel, Wild Child, were thrown in the garbage bin. Someone grabbed them and pulled them out and started selling the copies on Amazon. And sure enough, it became a big success, simply because it got out to people. You tell a friend, you tell another, because all they did was just put it out there. That was it. And he got reviews, wonderful reviews. And it just lets you know that, the people that publish don't necessarily know what we, the reader, want. And, this is a person that was frustrated. He had 28 boxes of books. That's a lot in his garage, so he sent them to the recycling plant, and he paid $200 to toss them. And then, sure enough, his Wild Child, he peeked at that in Amazon and saw it selling. And he's thinking, hey, I'm not getting a cent for this. What happened? How did they get it? And then he realized all those books, somebody said, hey, wait a minute, let me throw them on Amazon and see what happens. Never underestimate yourself, for the simple reason, just one person reading it doesn't mean that everyone's going to say no. It's the truth. And I truly encourage people that when you're reading your own manuscript, allow a few other people to look at it. Get their, if you can get honest reactions, that's cool. A lot of times people are afraid to tell you. They don't want to hurt your feelings, especially when you're trying so hard. But if you can get someone that can actually say, hey, this should be here, that should be there, why is this character feeling like this? It's going to open up your mind, truly it will. Now, I do know one thing, though, is I love books, okay? I read at a ferocious rate. I could easily read a good 10 books a week, easy. If I spent nothing but reading books myself. But of course life happens, so that doesn't give you all the ability to read like you want. But I'm just looking over, and it makes you wonder why writers go on to only one genre. Now that's why I loved having Miss Fox here. She obviously knows the difference between genres, and she's writing a textbook to help CDL drivers be able to keep their rigs on the road, basically. That is so far different from a fiction book. World's different, and yet the fact that she has the capability to do both is amazing. So many writers only stay in one genre. As an example, first thought that comes to mind is Agatha Christie. I've often wondered, how would she do writing a science fiction? And the same way, for other authors, sometimes we have a tendency to just pin them in one genre and not let them expand like we should. One that I really enjoyed that kind of moved beyond that was Michael Crichton. He was one of my favorite authors in that respect. This is a man who did books about science and medical, and yet he could write, novels that were gripping and suspense-filled, and he even did ER. He wrote most of the screenplays for ER. He was such a talented individual. We truly lost somebody great when he passed. And, I'm thinking like some of his movies he did was Lost World. Which, like I said, I keep on thinking of all the different things that he did, and it was just amazing. He was an amazing man. Now, one thing that I've discovered is there's another website out there called gcrowd.com, and it's GCROWD.com. This is supposed to be like Yelp. Okay, now I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with Yelp, but Yelp is a website that allows you to be able to comment on what's good and bad on restaurants. Well, G-Crowd lets you rate the business apps that are out there. And if you've ever downloaded an app and found out that it was a dud, you want to let people know in same ways if it was really good. It helps you. This site has that capability to do that. And I do encourage people that if you do find something that isn't to your satisfaction, please let others know. Don't keep it to yourself. You know, I mean, no one likes that type of surprise. And same way for the good stuff, you know. So I do encourage our readers to go to gcrowd.com and, you know, rate what you need. One thing that we always try to do is we try to bring you up to date on what's happening and new. As you know, Google has lots of new products out there. There's a tablet, there's phones, there's PCs, and they're only going to be adding more because eventually there's going to be Google Glasses that's coming out, and Google is going to launch standalone stores by the holiday time period before Christmas and Hanukkah. Well, I don't know if they should. I mean, think of all the companies that have tried, like Dell as an example, that do not have stores currently. Apple tried it, let it collapse. They stopped doing it. Then they put their products in stores like Best Buy and then pulled them out again. And then they opened up stores again. So I could not even tell you if this was going to be a good thing or not. And supposedly these stores are supposed to go into major arenas, like, for instance, New York City as an example. The Google name will sell a lot of stuff, but will it continue? That makes you wonder. Okay, and for Google's sake, you know, because I know that this is obviously going to generate jobs, and we all need jobs, I'm hoping that that will work. Okay, but now, one thing that I was doing that I just wanted people to know is that the U.S. Department of Education, because we're always looking at that, what are they doing next? As you know, Mr. Obama has said, I want education to be a focal point here. Well, there's a lot of stuff that they do they consider illegal basically on a college level, but they let it go for kindergarten through 12, and some of those things that I don't understand why they do, they are doing. Basically, what I was referring to is now I'm sure people are familiar with what a charter school is. This is a public school where you have to, probably the best thing is you have to fill out certain criteria in order to get accepted. Now you're thinking, it's a public school, why can't anyone go? That's the question. Okay, they test these kids based on their records, of course, their school records, parental support, disciplinary history. The parents go through background checks, motivation, special needs, and even citizenship. And this is in violation of the state and federal law. I mean, you're not supposed to, for instance, you know, have to give up your Social Security number for your kid to attend school. You know, and for having them run background checks on your driver's license and so forth. But these charters are public schools. They're funded by taxpayers, and they're widely promoted as being open to all. But reality is, if you're in kindergarten to age 12, you might not get into the school that's right across your street where all your other neighbors are going to. And if you don't get in, where do you go? Some districts are entirely charter schools. So this isn't fair. I mean, there truly is not a fairity to this. And I would like to see things change because they can't do this in college. Okay, they can't. Then it's illegal for them to, you know, call up a parent and say, hey, I need your driver's license. You know, I need to know everything there is about you. Do you drink, you know, whatever, in order for your kid to go into school. And yet, when it's a charter school, they do. And there is such a Okay, charter schools are really wanted. All the parents want them to go. It's like the elite. Even though it's free and supposedly open to all, it's considered an elite school. Okay, well, these so-called elite schools, they don't take anyone that's poor. The charter schools, they don't provide, as an example, subsidized lunches. Okay, so if you have the ability to receive a subsidized lunch, which is the difference between eating and not eating for that child during that day of school time, especially if you're poor, you can't have that in a charter school. Does that sound fair? No. Okay? And, it's just, there's more barriers than there should be, basically. It makes me sad that this is going on because every child should be allowed to have an education. Some of these things that kick kids out are, for instance, because this is not only do you need to go through all the stuff just starting it out, you have to continue. They want mandatory family interviews, assessment exams, academic prerequisites that you have to fill out and maintain, or else they don't go. They even demand that the students present their Social Security cards and birth certificates to be considered. In other words, they have to be a United States citizen regardless. I mean, that's not fair. Every child should learn, right? And this is a public school. So what in the world are they talking about? And the application forms, they're lengthy, long, boring, and they're usually only printed in English. In other words, no other languages are possible of any kind. And there's report cards, there's test scores, there's disciplinary records, teachers' recommendations, even medical records they want to see before they even admit you. So God knows what they're doing with the medical records. Well, is that what you consider a public school? I don't. And and like I said, there are areas of the country where that's all there is. So if the child doesn't get approved, I guess you have to automatically consider homeschooling because there is no place to send that child. And one charter high school, this was one child high school, it actually says on their application they will not consider applicants with less than a 2.0 grade point average. And another will only admit schools who pass Algebra 1 in middle school with a grade of B or better. Come on, these are kids. Even if the kid was doing only a C work, don't they have the ability to continue? I think so. So, and these are things people are not aware of. So, yeah, like I said, the only thing that I can suggest to people is that if you don't like how this is going, or perhaps you're even involved in a charter school and have to do all this stuff and don't want to do it, there are ways to change this. This is supposedly a public school. That means your taxpayer dollars are going to it. Okay? And one thing that we all have is the right and ability to vote and change things. Okay? So if you don't like something, stick around. We got elections. But only through the power, and the most motivated person that I've ever met is a parent, for the simple reason it's your kid. What happens affects your kid, and only you can protect your child. And this isn't protecting. If it means that a child does not get, an education, that's not protecting it. It just isn't. I do apologize for being overly long on this, but it is something that comes close to heart. I myself, I have a 13-year-old. I want the best for her. And I don't believe a charter school is that. It's not how I was raised, just not. And on a lighter side, I did want to say something that truly is worthwhile. Everyone knows who Dr. Seuss is. Well, his birthday is March 1st. There is going to be a year-long celebration, and it even includes a nationwide tour of Dr. Seuss's never-before-seen personal hat collection. Now, I have not seen a picture of this collection, but it has to have a cat in the hat hat. It has to. It wouldn't be Dr. Seuss if it wasn't. And this is a man who, like I said, his books started almost everyone that has ever picked up a book. It has gotten them to read. His inventive ways of rhyming, to this day, I know nearly every adult that's ever been out there that's read a book can quote a book by Dr. Seuss. My favorite is Sam I Am. Yes, I am Sam I Am. I did have green eggs and ham. and I liked them. That and many others, of course. And I'm not going to go on that because I know I stink. But anyway. But one other thing that we try to do is, one thing that someone quoted here is that the government should focus less on how to measure child poverty because they spend hundreds of dollars on that, and just more on how to get rid of it, to eradicate it. Also, another aspect that we're keeping attached of is apparently, although I did not realize it, but the country of India is very big on books and e-reading because they have so many technical developments there that they are actually a hub just in the heart of India there, where they concentrate on trying to find books that are, well, how shall I say, India's morals, not morals, that's not really, but India's culture is a bit different than, say, the United States. As an example, Bollywood is a lot different than, say, Hollywood, as an example, in content and taste. And they want to try to find children's books and young adult books that reflect upon that. So they're very big at publishing children's books for that type of readership. And I think it's great. I mean, because not every culture is the same as the United States. We should reflect all cultures. And having that ability to be able to do that is superb. And India is just going headfirst into it. They are definitely not behind in the times. One other thing that I didn't even know that was being built is, how we have presidential libraries. And it's been basically the last 10 presidents all have their libraries approximately. George Washington is having a presidential library being built. And I think that is absolutely wonderful. If anyone should have a presidential library, why not George? I just didn't think they had enough to fill it. But this is going to be happening in Mount Vernon, Virginia. And they're going to have a presidential library. Right now, they're just putting down the brickwork. That's how, they're just starting. But they hope to, eventually have something done, within a few years. Maybe sooner, depending on how fast it goes up. But they do have some personal papers of George Washington, and some rare books and other things that can fill it. Personally, like I said, I didn't think they had enough to even begin to try to do that, but they do. And it's going to have an auditorium that will seat 200 people. So they could have, various functions there. And it's close to the city, of course. And there's Reagan National Airport that's there. And it's going to be quite nice. Very nice. In fact, I think that if they were going to have something along those lines, why not? He is one of our first president. He is our first president and one of the better ones. I think that would be good. Now, another thing that's been happening is that the Library of Congress has a large collection of rare antique tape. Okay, and by tape, these are recordings. As an example, they have the very first recording that is known. They have that there, and that's from, I believe, from the very first tape recorder that was ever done. and they did have recordings, and they're trying to preserve it all. Okay, they've lost recordings by George Gershwin, Frank Sinatra, and Judy Garland, and they had to do something because they don't want to lose any more, basically. But there are many different libraries and private institutions that have old recordings that are, of course, a very fragile state. And what the Library of Congress is going to do is try to sign and be able for future scholars, to be able to analyze and do. I think that's marvelous. One time when I was younger, I went to the Smithsonian and I listened to the Ed Sullivan Show. It was the episode where they had the Beatles on it, and I was ecstatic to hear it. If I'd listened to it when it was on at the time, I might have been maybe 3 or 4 or something like that, and not really appreciated it. To listen to it back then was a true treat. So for them to save these recordings, they're trying to raise public and private funds. They've created the nonprofit National Recording Preservation Foundation, and they're going to just try to be able to do what they can to save what they can before it's gone. Because unfortunately, the tapes that were first out there, they're deteriorating, and so unless they do something quick, it's going to be gone. Okay, so that's part of our future. I would hate to see it go, because I'd like my great-grandchildren to be able to do so. Now, one other thing that I wanted to just stress is people like to do poetry, but a lot of times they don't know how to do so. And come Valentine's Day, I found a cute article, How to Pen the Perfect Love Poem. And basically, they say, try to rhyme everything. You don't necessarily have to if the prose that you're doing is well meant. I mean, you can try to get it to rhyme exactly, but even if you can't, some of the best poems that are out there don't rhyme. They just mean something. And I like the fact that this particular article was more so, throw away the rhyming. Just go with what the heart says. And I know a lot of writers of poems do that, but it was just nice to say that. Now, one other thing that I wanted to bring up is, I'm sure you've heard a very famous author gave an interview and said that libraries are not relevant. They don't matter anymore. And I don't want to mention that author because he's already been well written about. I leave it to the reader here why you think libraries are relevant. On a personal level, I think when I go into a library, I can find things that might be, as an example, out of print. Because once they're out of print, you can't get a hold of them. Very difficult. You'd have to scrounge, Another thing that I like to do is, a library has so many different types of formats. As an example, they might have, record albums, or little 45s that if you had the device or wanted to, take it out with a library card, you could. Even things, even non-existent formats, like, for instance, cassettes that really aren't used anymore now, as frequently anyway. Might have a cassette album or 8-track as an example. But if you own a device or want to take out that device from a library, they have it accessible to you. Libraries are relevant. They are places for the community to be, to meet. In fact, even just right now during tax season, many libraries offer the ability to speak with a volunteer that will help you do your taxes for free. You don't pay a cent. I mean, there's so many different things the libraries do that are essential, and this is just a few of them. I mean, I'm sure if you asked a librarian, what do we do here, she would talk till she's blue, because there is so many things that they do. You know what I mean? And nowadays, with all the various communities trying to cut costs, a library is more relevant now than it ever was. The only thing I can say for that author is I don't believe he's walked into a library recently. If you could see all the hubbub, the people waiting in line to take out books, the people that are sitting, in a comfortable chair reading. And nowadays you can walk into the library or even just do so at home and download an ebook, get some music, movies, and more so. It's not just a thing. People meet there in communities to talk. They play bingo. Church groups might meet, for counselings or whatever. But a library is a meeting place. It is a hub of community. It's relevant, and quite frankly, I think that author, well, he hasn't walked into a library recently, or else, he wouldn't have never said that if he had, truly. Now, a lot of people are familiar with this particular website. It's called Pinterest. I call it Pinterest, but other people may say differently. And basically, it's actually been growing by leaps and bounds. It's becoming the second most popular social network, with the first one being Facebook. And I tried it out, and I actually liked it a lot. It wasn't that different than Facebook. Facebook has a few more tweaks and stuff like that to it, but this is new, and it's going to grow. And it was very nice. The people that were there that I spoke with while there were very nice, kind people. You could make friends and, just communicate. And I like the fact that, for instance, if I wanted to put, a cooking recipe on there, I could. That was very nice. Now, I know our time is getting short, but I did want to just simply point out one thing. When I mentioned Facebook, how it has new quirks on it. It says some Facebook users can pay to promote their friend's post. So does this mean that we're all going to have the ability to get a paycheck? I would say, well, not really. It allows users to be able to promote their own posts, and in that case, it's becoming more commercial than I would really want it to be. But you figure money might have to come into it somehow. Facebook does make a lot of money, and basically they call it extreme price points. It's to help filter spam. And they're asking $100 to ensure that a private message would land in Mark Zuckerberg's inbox rather than his other folder. This is a test, and the system opened to a small number of users in the U.S. The select users can pay just $1 to send messages to people outside of their social circles. So say you don't have a person that's your friend, but you want to talk to him, you can pay $1 and send him a message. Now, my personal preference is, instead of paying out the $1, just pick up the phone or type in an email to the person. You save $1 and you still communicate. I guess it just depends on what you want to say and what the situation is. But whenever you hear about someone paying to call out or something like that, you think, well, the phone company, has charged us a lot. And now you're paying money to Facebook to make a phone call. Doesn't that sound sort of wrong? Because especially people that have been stuck with AT&T that nickels and dimes you. Now you're paying $1 to Facebook. Oh, there's got to be another way to make that phone call. Now, one thing I wanted to suggest, because we always try to suggest things to families, to get your kid to read, because that seems to be the hardest situation for parents, because they'll hand the kid the book, the e-reader, but if they don't use it, they're not reading. Well, your children have friends, okay? Some of the kids you may not even want your kid to see, but they have parents, and all these parents have the same problem: how to get your kid to read. Well, starting a book club could not hurt. Pick a book. On a personal level, Harry Potter seems to be good for all ages. So the first Harry Potter book as an example. Have everybody read it. You know, I mean, and this is not just a read just for the kids, but for the parents too. So once they finish reading the book, you know, if you give them, you know, the time necessary to do it, or you can just read like, you know, you can do like a chapter or two at a time. Everybody gets together on, you know, Saturday, comes over for lunch, you know, cookout and stuff, and the highlight of the afternoon, you talk about the book with your kids. Find out what would you have done to change it, to make it better. You know, what didn't you understand? What did you like? Ask those questions. And if they don't know the answer to it, bring out the book, flip to the page. Come on, you know, don't be afraid to talk to your kids about reading. For the simple reason, the only way how they're going to read is if they do it holding the book or e-reader in their hands and saying it out loud. Well, again, this is, you know, the hard part, because a lot of parents will say, oh, they'll read the book themselves, you know. I have no interest in it. Well, this is your kid. You want them to become better at things. The best thing possible for a child to do better in, you know, any type of career is you have to read. You have to be able to read just to fill out a job application, as an example. And when you help a child, or in this case, even an adult, say you're an adult that you can't read very well, by having a book club, going over the information, rereading over the stuff you don't understand, all you do is improve yourself. It's really cool. I encourage people to read as much as possible. Like I said, people will say, oh, it's a horrible waste of time. I could be doing something else. No, what you're doing is you're adding information to your brain, something that no one else can take away. And please, please do. Now, one other thing is that they came out with an interesting note here. They says bilingual babies, children that know more than one language, they learn grammar because they learn the grammar in the language by the age of 6 months. 7 months, pardon me. If you have a baby, please read to them. Please, the younger the better. Get comfortable with a nightly routine of a book in your hand as the adult and the child by your side, and eventually they'll, you know, show them, this is this word, this is spelled, you know, blah, 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 you know, I mean, and it's pronounced like this, and have the child try to pronounce it, you know, and look again and tell me, what are the letters again of that word? Blah, 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 you know, I mean, go over it with your child, please. You are, you know, we put too much, how shall I say it? We put too much focus on teachers when the parent should be the first teacher. And the more you read to your child, the better that child's going to be in understanding, creation, and so forth. Now, our time is up. I do apologize if I sounded a little bit preachy, but it's something that I truly do believe in. And I look for your feedback. You know, definitely don't be afraid to, you know, respond on our webpage, ReaderRadio.net. You are listening to Authors Chat. My name is Janice Landry. It has been a true pleasure having you listen to our show. All of our shows do get put on our website and also on YouTube and other websites as well. Like I said, all we do is encourage people to read and go forth, truly. And by reading, if we can have a more educated society, hey, we've done our job. We've done our job. Because I would love to have people's minds make up their decision rather than be told to. Always question. Please do. Please do. In the meantime, I would like to wish you a very nice evening. I thank you for listening to us, and I hope you have a great rest of the week. In the meantime, thank you for listening to Authors Chat. We will be back next Monday, and we will have another author to interview. Take care, good luck, and Godspeed. Thank you.